Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am building something from a newly released game that came out in December of 2022. It is by the creator Justin Roiland, who also makes Rick and Morty and a number of other awesome things that I enjoy watching. And I thought I need to make something from this game. Somebody suggested it when it came out, and I hadn't really heard a lot about it, so I went and downloaded the game and got to play it just a little bit, and am super obsessed with it already. It is hilarious. One of the main things in it that I find super funny is you have weapons with faces that talk trash to you. And I thought, what better thing to start off 2023 with than a knife that talks trash and wants to stab everybody. Yeah, so today we are going to make Knifey from High on Life. Let's get to building. Free template in the description. If you're a big Rick and Morty fan, I think you will thoroughly enjoy this game. The humor, artistic world building, and storyline are totally like an episode of the show. I can't remember the last time I laughed so much while playing a video game. So to start this build, I just did a rough sketch of the weapon, blade, handle, and the head. Once my lines looked right to me, I go over them with a Sharpie and cut them individually into pieces. You could definitely just print out a scaled version of this to your hand and achieve the same thing, but I like to challenge myself a little bit from time to time, and this design seems relatively simple enough to do. It shouldn't be too hard. Normally you would want a part of the blade to go into the handle to reinforce the part, but I figured cutting a wedge in the head later would probably be enough strength to join these two pieces together because it's just going to be a display. My blade and teeth will be made of some 4mm What the Foam from Cosplay Apprentice. It is my go-to for sturdy, dense foam for blades. No supports needed when this stuff is 3 layers thick. The head is out of a chunk of 48mm EVA foam I bought from TNT Cosplay Supply online. If you can't find foam that thick, look for yoga blocks, or simply glue the thickest material you have together into a couple of layers to get you a good chunk. My handle is a 36mm EVA dowel, and the pommel and alien lips are 10mm HD foam. I am tracing my pattern with a paint pen and then cut out all the parts. My head will be a little bit of sculpting. I don't really know what the backside of the knife looks like, so I'm just going to keep it relatively generic with a couple of folds of skin. While the template is of his whole face, I'm carving the base shape out of a block and will add the wrinkles around his eyes, his lips, and his eyeballs, gluing them over the top of this piece. I start by cutting off the bulk of the shape with a box cutter, switch over to a sanding drum on my rotary tool, and once that is where I want it, I change to a stone bit and smooth over the entire surface. Make sure to wear a respirator and work in a well-ventilated area while sanding foam. The dust gets everywhere and the last place you want it to be is in your lungs. Also be careful with your box cutter and hobby knives. My hands have more scars on them than I'd like to admit simply because I wasn't paying attention while cutting. North of the Border here on YouTube made this same weapon a week or two ago, but out of polymer clay and wood. A different approach in materials, but similar in process. You should definitely go check his video out after this to see a different take on it. As I was editing this video, I saw he also made the Kenny from the game, and I'm definitely gonna watch that after I finish wrapping this video up. For my build, I'm going to use nothing but EVA foam. Not necessarily the easiest approach when making round things like eyeballs, but I'm up for the challenge. The easiest way I have come up with to attack this task is to use an EVA dowel and then round over the tip. When the shape is where I want it, I switch to the stone bit, smooth it over, and then cut it off with a box cutter. Knifey has wonky eyes, which means one of them is quite a bit larger than the other. I used a 36mm dowel for one and a 24mm dowel for the other. My lips are sculpted from a piece of 10mm EVA foam with wrinkles etched in the stone bit at the end. You could also be using some clay foam or something else to do some of these steps with, but I'm sticking to just the EVA. For most of this build, I'm using super glue. None of the connection points were very large or under a lot of pull, and since this is a knife, it doesn't need to really be that flexible. Super glue melts EVA a little bit, and that can cause areas to become brittle or hardened. I attach all of my pieces together on the handle very quickly. Once I have the eyes, teeth, and lips on, I cut a 10mm EVA dowel into quarters that I'll use for the ridge around his eyes. My teeth pieces were rounded over on the edges to make them more teeth-like. I didn't record this because you would have just saw the back of my hand because they're ginormous covering over the piece, so I just skipped it. Just round over the stuff. It's all good. Then glue the lips over the top of it once you get them glued in. I glue the head to the handle and cap off the bottom with a slightly larger 10mm thick pommel piece. Once these are all together, I can then do the wrap. I'm using some thin 2mm craft foam cut into strips for the handle. These strips on the weapon are of various thicknesses, so it's kind of like they're sloppily put together, and the wrapping itself is not done too neatly. So with all that in mind, I wrap it together, gluing it with super glue as I go, and then once it's all together, all that's left is the blade. I decided to make the blade into 3 pieces of 4mm EVA to make it super sturdy and so my outside layers can have that little groove cut out of them and I don't have to try and gouge that out with a rotary tool bit. I laid down a layer of contact cement on the 3 pieces with the middle layer getting it on both sides. After a few minutes, the adhesive is dry to the touch and ready to stick together. When attaching the parts together, do your best to keep the edges lined up and not to put a bend in them as you connect them. I hold it up so that you can see it a little better on camera. A better practice would be to do it on a flat surface. Any proud edges get sanded flush, then the blade gets shaped with a rotary tool. Just like in the other steps, once I get it to its basic shape, I switch over to a stone butt to smooth all the stuff out. You may want to mark a midline on the edge so that you know what to sand to. I've made tons of blades at this point and I just eyeball it as I go. If your foam is less dense, you could sandwich a piece of wire into the blade, but as small as the blade is, I don't really know that it's necessary for this build, especially not with a denser foam. To join the blade to the rest of Knifey, I trace the blade in position, cut out a chunk of the foam, and rip them out with some pliers. Then super glue his stabby bit into the top of his goofy head. I covered just the head portion of Knifey with a couple layers of Mod Podge to bridge the gap between his eyes and his lips. Then I hit it all with 2 thick coats of Plastidip. Paint job for this will remain pretty simple. I'm just going to hand paint it all with some acrylic paint. I mix up a little bit of colors to get it closer to my reference image on my phone and I slather it on. I put on a total of 2 layers for each color using a heat gun turned way down to speed up the process. When the base colors were done, I added a little white to my splotches of paint and then lightly passed over some of the edges just to give a nice highlight. With all that, it's pretty much finished at this point. I hope you enjoyed this build and let me know if you'd like to see more stuff from High on Life. I would definitely love to make some more stuff if y'all are all interested. And we are finished. Here is the end result. I definitely am going to have to make more from this game because everything on there is super hilarious, very Rick and Morty-esque, weird aliens, trash talking. The comedy is spot on, and I can definitely see myself making the gun Kenny as well. Yeah. Maybe you'll try to make one of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to play something and then immediately be like, I needs to have it. Needs to. Maybe you'll get some.
Yay!
And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them, much props. I mean, he gets a little twitchy and needs to start stabbing stuff, so hold still.
Yeah, come
He's
on,
getting too excited.
Stop now, we've already started.
If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to continue to see builds like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on my Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.